with us this morning. We're honored to have Mike Turzai, who's a Speaker of the House State Assembly, and he joins us here on WSBA. Mike, always good to have you on. Good morning to you. How are you?
Oh, Gary, good morning, and I'm honored to be on.
Well, great to have you. I want to get right to it. There's a growing number of counties you read about. I look at the Keystone Report in the morning, going to yellow or talking about going to yellow sooner than what the governor would like to have it done. Many of them are in the red classification right now. And there seems to be, I guess, for lack of a better term, a revolt among a lot of these counties in Pennsylvania, including even here in York County, a lot of talk about that and some of the businesses reopening. Your take on what's going on right now in the state of Pennsylvania?
You know, Gary, I think that what's reflected by the county decisions is really what they're hearing on the ground amongst the citizens in their communities. There's this sense that people were willing to, stay at home, sit this out as best they could, but that in the long term it's not sustainable. And to many, the objectives have already occurred that the governor wanted to achieve at some cost, by the way. Some significant cost. 1.8 million of our fellow citizens have filed for unemployment compensation claims. But the original objectives were twofold: take the pressure off the health systems, and second, to quote unquote flatten the curve. Both of those objectives have been met. If you look at the statistics of those patients in hospital beds that are there by COVID-19, because of COVID-19, it's less than 7%. And UPMC, I'm from out near Pittsburgh. UPMC is the largest employer and largest health system. It's 2% or less, and it has been consistently in their 5,522 beds. The other thing is we need to find a way to move on, because the consequences in the deterioration of family life, domestic violence, alcoholism, drug addiction. Anybody talks to any local police force, it's all up. It's all increasing, and that's a cost.
But let's go to something else too, Mike. And this is the concern. For many people, they're saying, how long do we go before we decide how we're going to live with this, as opposed to how we're going to duck it, how we're going to hide our heads in the sand from it? And I know the governor used the word cowardly the other day. I would say that it's cowardly, not that any person is cowardly, but the actions are cowardly if we decide we're just going to stick our heads in the sand and then over a period of time say, well, you can live off your welfare or you can live off the money that the government doles out to you. That's not the way Americans live, and that's not the way Pennsylvanians live. And if you go back to a life after all this is over, that is no life, because you've lost your business and you've lost your means of livelihood, and all you can do is be dependent on the government. What kind of life is that?
Gary, boy, you said it so well. Look, there's dignity and purpose in working, right? I mean, people want to be productive. They want to provide for shelter and food for their families. They don't want to be dependent on government. They don't. People are down. I mean, you know it. You're talking to everyday people on your show, and the way you said you're vetting it out. People need purpose and productivity, and it's not as if the COVID-19 is going away. We do not have a vaccine. We're not going to have it for a while, and in addition, we also know there's not a medicine. We have quote unquote flattened the curve. We've taken the pressure off the health system significantly. Less than 1.5% of our fellow citizens are in hospitals on ventilators attributable to COVID-19 out of the hospital beds. And everybody needs to move forward. And it's why people, and the yellow zone, this is the governor's own schematic, by the way. The yellow zone is not that free of restrictions.
Right.
And I just think we need to, I think the governor needs to pivot at this point, and he needs to find a way to just let folks move forward as we get to Memorial Day. That I really think that needs to occur more and more, and just maintain the safe social distancing.
Mike, don't you have a sense that when people say we want to move to yellow, they really want to move to green? I mean, that's kind
yes,
of,
they do.
I mean, you might say yellow, but they want to move to green. They want to say, hey, I don't want back to a new normal. I want back to a normal. Now, if you say new normal for a while, it's going to be masks and social distancing until we get a vaccine. I think reasonable people can go along with that. But By the same token, this idea that we're being preached that we'll never go back to normal again, I don't think people are quite buying that totally.
No, and no, I do agree with you, Gary. And there's this sense that people need. They've given up for now. They give it up for a short period of time. But Americans are not going to give it up a long time. Certainly not Pennsylvanians. Their livelihoods, civil liberties, their ability to maintain their health in with respect to treating cancer or heart disease, knee replacements, hip replacements. They want to continue to take care of themselves. They want to continue to be able to go to church and to congregate. Yes, they will maintain spaces, in the churches, the synagogues, the mosques. We need to get on with our everyday life using new everyday protocols. People really are washing their hands. People are wearing masks. People are staying safe social distances, but they need to get on with their lives. And what you said about what people really want is to get into green. That is really what they want. And
that really
what
is.
we need is public policymakers, if I might. We need to now zero in. We've seen the numbers. We have over 3,800 deaths, unfortunately, in Pennsylvania attributable to COVID-19. 70% of those have occurred in nursing homes, personal care homes, and assisted living residents. These facilities.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about that, though, Mr. Speaker. About did we do a good enough job in the beginning? There's some questions about the Secretary of Health. Did we do a good enough job in the beginning of that, or we dropped the ball on that? Because just yesterday, the governor started to talk about the kinds of testing we're going to do in those homes, in those senior citizens' homes, and so forth. And that's where the majority of this is. And people say, let's quarantine those, but let's not quarantine everybody because of those. That's one of the questions. About 20 seconds left in this segment, then we have another segment to talk a little bit more.
Yes. Well, you're right on. I myself have a legislation that's going to move today out of committee. Stan Saylor, your neighbor in your county, is our appropriations chair. And it's really designed to take the academic medical centers like WellSpan, like Geisinger, like Hershey, Penn State, and then out my way, UPMC and Allegheny Health Network. And then also you have University of Pennsylvania and Temple. But it's designed for them to use their levels of expertise to go in and help these personal care homes, nursing homes, really, to be honest with you, to do the testing, because I don't think they're capable of doing it on their own. Neither is the Department of Health. They don't have the level of expertise, and then to also do infection control and clinical practice work.
Mike Turzai, Speaker of the State House, State Assembly, and Mike, there's a feeling that there is a great schism right now between the governor and at least the Republican members of the House, and I'm not sure how many Democrats have joined in on that, because they've been left out. And the question that a lot of people are asking, has the governor usurped powers that belong to the state legislature, and when is push going to come to shove on this? Your thoughts?
Gary, I think that the governor's power under that existing statute, whether explicitly written in, implicitly, it really should be for a limited time duration when you really have to move quickly on an item. And 2 months, we're really beyond that. Now, there's nothing. We've been meeting for 8 straight weeks and voting. There's no reason that the governor, at this stage, and I would say for probably a couple weeks, couldn't just be working through the standard legislative process. Doesn't mean you can't move with alacrity, because you can. We've shown that on some items that we've worked with the governor, and on other items where we felt that we needed to move the governor. One he vetoed, where we thought you could have a more economic activity safely done following the CDC guidelines. He vetoed. Now, in that particular bill, we had just Republican votes in the House and the Senate. But every week as we've moved on legislation, we've picked up more and more of our fellow Democratic colleagues. In fact, the bill that would have allowed safe practices at garden centers or seed stores, I think we had 133 votes, which included quite a few Democrats.
Mike, when we look at the major points of contention right now with the way the governor has continued on, many have said he's kind of going into a cocoon. He takes questions through his designated press person who decides what questions he's going to answer and which ones he's not going to. We saw yesterday one of the members of the state Senate subpoenaed records from him, and he refused those, saying, I don't think I have to give those to you on how waivers are being made, on how decisions are being made. Transparency is what all of you are supposed to be doing on behalf of the real government, which is the Pennsylvania people. And everything, and I've said many days, and I'll say it again today for the millionth time, that if everything you're doing is not transparent, then it's not good policy. And I think a lot of people are more and more coming around to that kind of thought. Your reaction?
Well, you're right on point, and that's true for every branch, legislative, executive, and judicial.
Correct.
By the way.
Correct.
And everybody has to adopt that. We were, that Spotlight organization submitted right to know requests, and somebody on our staff redacted stuff, and I just said, oh my goodness, turn everything over. I mean, who cares? It's
right.
I mean, what I mean by who cares, if we spend it, it's open to the public. Like, of course,
right.
The public and the press can see it. And we did. We turned everything over. And what I meant was like, why would you put up a roadblock here? Just turn it over.
Right.
And I think the governor, which is why we passed this right to know legislation, should really just adopt the same approach. You do your best. You put it out on the table. You let people make judgment. And it just works best for everybody. I think
right.
The governor would be well served. I do think he you know him well. He's from your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a fine person.
Yes.
But I do think he has, he's gone into the trenches some. And
yep.
I don't think that he's getting out. And I know when I say getting out, I don't mean to be like, oh, you have to be out and about. But
no, but
like even through Zoom discussions or getting on radio shows, or just being out.
Yeah, he won't come on. He won't come on our show. Never has since he was governor. I want to ask you one other question, though, Mike, and it's this one, and I don't have a lot of time left with this, about 30 seconds. But you wrote a letter to Secretary of Education Pedro Rivera about schools reopening in the fall, and your thoughts about that very quickly before we leave you.
Schools have to be open by Labor Day period. We know that the children are not the target group. In fact, the only ones that potentially get risk are those with underlying medical complications.
Right.
And listen, here's the thing. The school district can come up with an individual education plan for those students. And in addition, you can always use cyber charter, but you can't stop. Like, you have to focus on those kids and come up with a plan for them. But kids need to be back in school. They have dreams. They have pursuits.
Right.
Parents, I think some
right.
parents, many parents are having difficulties at home, in part because the kids are there. They're not getting educated. We know they're not to the same level that they would be in school. And
we'll have to leave it at that. I
get them back in.
always wish I had about an hour more with you. We were always left wanting, but I appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning, Mr. Speaker, and thank you so very much, and continue working on getting the very best for Pennsylvanians. That's all we're asking for, right?
Oh, Gary, your show is excellent, and I'm honored to be on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Take care. Speaker Mike Turzai with us here on WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton.